There is a rhythm that beats beneath the surface of the world, a frequency that connects the dust of the Sahel to the humid air of the Caribbean. It is a rhythm forged in the fires of history, carried across the Atlantic Ocean on the ships that stole millions of souls, and preserved in the drums of resistance that have never stopped playing. For 400 years, the children of Africa, scattered across the globe by the winds of the slave trade, have looked east. They have stood on the shores of Jamaica, of Haiti, of Brazil, and of the United States, gazing at the horizon, waiting for a sign. They were raised on the prophecies of Marcus Garvey, who told them to look to Africa for the crowning of a black king, for the moment when the sleeping giant would awaken and shake off the chains of Babylon. For decades, they waited. They saw leaders rise and fall. They saw promises made and broken. They saw the dream of Pan-Africanism deferred by coups, by corruption, and by the cold machinery of neocolonialism. But in the year 2022, the rhythm changed. The drums began to beat faster. A signal was sent up from the heart of West Africa, from a land of upright men, that resonated instantly in the heart of the diaspora. It did not come from a politician in a suit, speaking the polished French of the elite. It came from a soldier in combat fatigues, wearing a red beret that looked like a drop of blood against the desert sky. His name was Ibrahim Traoré, and almost overnight, from the sound systems of Kingston to the street corners of Harlem, the name of a young captain from Burkina Faso began to be whispered, then spoken, and then shouted with the reverence usually reserved for the legends of the past. To understand why Jamaica is singing for Ibrahim Traoré, to understand why a Rastafarian in the hills of St. Anne feels a spiritual kinship with a Muslim soldier in Ouagadougou, we must understand that this is not just about politics. It is about energy. It is about the universal language of resistance against oppression. It is about the fall of Babylon. In the theology of the diaspora, Babylon is not just a place. It is a system. It is the system of imperialism, of extraction, of mental and physical slavery that has kept black people downtrodden for centuries. For the Rastafarian, for the conscious reggae artist, for the student of history, the struggle has always been about tearing down Babylon. They sang about it with Bob Marley. Well, they preached about it with Peter Tosh. But for a long time, it felt like a metaphor. Then, they turned on their screens and saw Ibrahim Traoré doing it in real life. They saw a man standing in front of the ambassadors of the most powerful nations on earth, the architects of the modern colonial system, and telling them that their time was up. They saw him expelling the French military, the modern-day redcoats, not with a negotiation, but with a command. They saw him nationalizing the gold mines, taking back the wealth that had been stolen to build the palaces of Europe. This was no longer a song. This was a music video come to life. When Traoré speaks of sovereignty, he is speaking the language of the Maroons, the escaped slaves of Jamaica who fled to the mountains and fought the British Empire to a standstill. And he embodies the spirit of Nanny of the Maroons, of Paul Bogle, of Sam Sharp. He represents the warrior spirit that the diaspora fears it has lost, the uncompromising refusal to bow. When a young man in Kingston sees Traoré on TikTok, flanked by his masked Cobra special forces, looking calm amidst the chaos, he does not see a foreign dictator. He sees a reflection of his own desire for dignity. He sees a brother who has stopped asking for permission to be free. The connection was electric and immediate. In the dance halls of Jamaica, where the DJs usually shout out local dons and community leaders, the name Traoré began to slip into the mix. Artists who have spent their careers chanting down the system suddenly found a living avatar for their lyrics. The red, gold, and green flags of the Rastafari movement, which represent the blood, the wealth, and the land of Africa, seemed to find a new home in the flag of Burkina Faso. It was as if the spirit of Thomas Sankara, whom many in the diaspora regard as a saint of the struggle, had transmigrated into this new vessel to finish the work he started in 1983. Sankara was the Che Guevara of Africa, but Traoré is seen as something even more primal: the defender. This perception was solidified by the crisis in Niger. When the military in Niamey overthrew their pro-Western government, the empire struck back with a fury that exposed the fault lines of the continent. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, led by the political giants of the region, threatened to invade Niger. They threatened to unleash a fratricidal war, to send black soldiers to kill black soldiers on behalf of Western interests. And it was a moment of profound shame for Pan-Africanists around the world. It looked like the end. The giant of Nigeria was mobilizing. The West was cheering. The narrative was set. The rebellion would be crushed, and order would be restored. And then Ibrahim Traoré stepped forward. Alongside Assimi Goïta of Mali, he drew a line in the sand that vibrated across the Atlantic. An attack on Niger, he declared, is a declaration of war on Burkina Faso and Mali. It was a moment of supreme courage. David was standing up to Goliath. Burkina Faso, a nation besieged by terrorism with limited resources, was willing to throw its entire existence onto the scale to save a neighbor. This act of brotherhood broke the internet in the diaspora. In Jamaica, where the philosophy of one love is often quoted but rarely seen in geopolitics, and this was the ultimate manifestation of unity. It was the principle of I and I, the oneness of all people, in action. Traoré was saying, "Your struggle is my struggle. Your blood is my blood." The invasion never happened. The threat evaporated. The determination of the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, forced the aggressors to back down. For the observers in the Caribbean and the Americas, this was a victory of biblical proportions. It proved that unity is not just a slogan, it is a shield. It proved that when African nations stand back to back, they are invincible. The image of Traoré, Goïta, and Tiani, the three leaders of the Sahel, became a triptych of liberation. They were compared to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, walking through the fiery furnace of sanctions and threats and emerging unsinged. But the admiration for Traoré in the diaspora goes deeper than military posturing. It is rooted in his rejection of the psychological chains of colonialism. For generations, Black people have been told that they need the West to survive. They need Western aid, Western validation, Western culture. Traoré shattered this myth. When he stood on the stage in St. Petersburg at the Russia-Africa Summit, he did not act like a beggar. He acted like an emperor. He scolded his fellow African heads of state for acting like puppets. He refused the gifts of grain that were offered as charity, demanding instead the technology to grow his own food. "A slave who does not rebel does not deserve pity," he thundered. That sentence was heard in the barbershops of London. It was heard in the taxis of New York. It was heard in the markets of Lagos. And it was heard in the recording studios of Kingston. It was a call to arms for the mind. It resonated with the teachings of Marcus Garvey, who preached self-reliance above all else. Traoré was living proof that an African nation could say no to the World Bank, no to the IMF, no to the former colonizers, and the sky would not fall. In fact, the sun would shine brighter. The cultural impact of this awakening is only just beginning to be felt. We are seeing a renaissance of political consciousness in the music and art of the Black world. Reggae artists, who have always been the town criers of the oppressed, are weaving the narrative of the Sahel into their songs. They are singing about the gold of Mali. They are singing about the uranium of Niger. They are educating their listeners about the CFA Franc and the currency of servitude that Traoré is fighting to destroy. The global awakening is not just about watching the news. It is about a shift in identity. For a young Jamaican kid, seeing Traoré makes Africa feel closer, more real, and more powerful than the starving child images shown by charity commercials. It restores pride. It rebuilds the bridge that was burned 400 years ago. This connection is terrifying to the established powers. They know that if the ideology of the Sahel Alliance spreads to the diaspora, they will lose control of the narrative completely. They rely on the fragmentation of the Black world. They rely on Nigerians disliking South Africans, on Caribbeans feeling disconnected from Africans, on African Americans feeling isolated. Traoré is the glue that is putting the pieces back together. Yet he is the common denominator. When a Haitian looks at Traoré, he sees the spirit of Toussaint Louverture, the leader of the only successful slave revolution in history. When a Jamaican looks at him, he sees the spirit of Marcus Garvey. When an American looks at him, he sees the spirit of Malcolm X. He has become a mirror in which the global Black community sees its best self. The gold war that Traoré is fighting, the battle to control the resources of his land, is also the battle of the diaspora. For centuries, the wealth of the Caribbean, the sugar, the bauxite, the bananas, was extracted to enrich Europe, just as the gold and cocoa of Africa were. The struggle is identical. The enemy is the same. The tactics of debt and destabilization are the same. Therefore, the victory of Burkina Faso is the victory of Jamaica. As if Traoré can bankrupt the colonial empire by cutting off the flow of cheap resources, he is striking a blow for every nation that has been exploited by that empire. He is balancing the scales of history. This is why the world is watching. This is why the algorithm cannot hide him. Every time Traoré gives a speech, it is translated into English, into Spanish, into Portuguese, and shared millions of times by people who have never stepped foot in Burkina Faso. They are hungry for leadership. They are starving for authenticity. In a world of carefully managed public relations and scripted politicians, Traoré is a raw nerve. He feels real. He feels dangerous. He feels like the turning of a page in a book that has been stuck on the same tragic chapter for too long. The alliance between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso is now being viewed by the diaspora as the new Zion, a fortress of righteousness in a wicked world. There is a romanticism to it, yes, but there is also a desperate hope. The diaspora knows that if Traoré fails, if he is assassinated or overthrown, it will be a crushing blow to the global morale. That is why the prayers are going up. That is why the songs are being written. That is why the eyes of the world are fixed on the Sahel. They are protecting him with their attention. They are shielding him with their solidarity. We are witnessing the birth of a new Pan-Africanism, one that is not defined by geography but by ideology. It is a digital Pan-Africanism, connected by fiber optic cables and satellite signals, but rooted in the ancient blood memory of the people. Traoré is the server through which this energy flows, and he is the chosen one, not because he sought the title, but because he stepped into the void when no one else would. He picked up the heavy burden of sovereignty when others were content to carry the light load of servitude. As the sun sets over the hills of Kingston and rises over the savannah of Ouagadougou, the distance between them seems to vanish. The struggle is one. The song is the same. It is a song of freedom, a song of redemption, a song of fire. And the chorus is getting louder every day. The giant has blinked. The empire is trembling. And the children of Africa, scattered like seeds across the earth, are finally looking east and seeing the sun rise on a new day. Ibrahim Traoré is not just a captain in an army, he is the captain of a consciousness, and he has reminded the world that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. From the Maroons who fought in the mountains of Jamaica to the Cobras fighting in the deserts of Burkina Faso, the lineage is unbroken. The spirit is the same, and as long as that spirit lives, the prophecy of Sankara and of Garvey and of Lumumba remains alive. Kill Sankara, and thousands will be born. We are seeing them now. They are born in the minds of the youth who refuse to accept the world as it is. They are born in the hearts of those who dare to dream of a world where Africa is free, united, and wealthy. The singing will not stop. The drums will not fall silent. Because for the first time in a long time, the song is not a lament. It is an anthem. It is a victory march. And Ibrahim Traoré is leading the band. And the world stood up because he stood up. And now that we are on our feet, we will not kneel again. The connection has been made. The circuit is complete. The awakening is global, and it is irreversible. This is the destiny of the Black world, revealed in the dust of the Sahel and celebrated in the rhythm of the Caribbean. We are one, and we are winning.